The mayor's in and out all the time. Oh. You say when, Cindy? Thank you, everybody, for Economic Development and Tourism and Culture Development meeting today, March 16th. I'd like to welcome you all here. We're going to call the meeting to order. Do I have approval of the agenda? Moved by Councillor McAleer, seconded by Councillor Trio. You okay? Any of the conflicts of interest? See none. Approval of the minutes, February 23rd, 2023. Do I have an approval of them, or? Moved by Councillor McAleer, second by Mayor Brown? Yes. Thank you. Was there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Thank you. Okay, discussions reports. We're going to start off with Mr. Wayne Long for Sports Tourism Strategic Framework. Please, Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Report is in your package. As the committee well knows, sport tourism is highly valuable to the City Corporation in terms of one of the pillars within our economic development unit. We've been playing in this space for many, many years, and on average, the industry contributes about $45 million to the Charlottetown economy. We've been highly ranked number one, in fact, for several years in a row in terms of our population category, 50,000 and under. We're also currently ranked 6th overall in the country, regardless of population size, so we're right up there with metropolitan cities. As you're probably aware, our efforts are guided by strategies. We've had several strategies over the years. Most recently, we had a one-year bridge strategy to get us through the height of the pandemic, and we're at a point where we have to renew our strategy to guide us and help us propel growth over the next number of years. We've been working with Mr. Grant McDonald from GM Event Inc., who was the author of the first couple of strategies. As you well know, Grant is highly recognized in this space. He's has lots of connection to the sport tourism world. He's a consultant who we worked with in the past. And Grant is joining us today to help walk us through the new strategy. We're looking for the committee's support so staff can get to work on rolling out this strategy and continue to capitalize on this lucrative market. So, Mr. Chair, I would turn it over to Grant, who's here virtually with us today, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Hi, Grant. Great to see you again.
Mr. Chair?
Would you like to start right away, or?
Sure.
Walk us through it, please.
Okay. And I will just share my screen here. Okay, and hoping that everybody can see that. Okay. Sport tourism at Charlottetown. So not assuming that everybody has the same level of understanding about the sport tourism sector. It is a key sector within the tourism industry, and in fact has been leading the recovery of the tourism industry coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sport tourism is any activity in which people are attracted to a particular location as a sport event participant, spectator, or to attend sport attractions or business meetings. This definition is from Sport Tourism Canada and has been generally accepted within the sector over the last 20 plus years. As Wayne mentioned, Charlottetown is a national leader, ranked number 6th overall and number 1 in its population category. And number 6th overall is impressive in that it is higher than many larger centers across Canada, including the highest ranking of any host location in Atlantic Canada. As well, within that population category, it should be noted that there is not another host city within the top 20. So it's not until you get to number 23 on that list that another city in the population category appears on that ranking of the Canadian Sport Hosting Index. Charlottetown has been long recognized within the sector as a leader within this space and has been approached and provides counsel to other host cities on how it has been able to achieve the level of success that it has. So it is always noted, especially when it comes to the municipally led models, because that is far and away the minority. In fact, Charlottetown is competing against many jurisdictions that are led in the sport tourism sector by destination organizations, whether they be destination marketing or destination management organizations. And because those organizations, by nature and by mandate, are sellers, storytellers, and marketers, Charlottetown is competing at a bit of a disadvantage already, in that you're going up against organizations that are resourced very differently and have all of the tools within their organizations to be able to not only attract events, but then leverage them in order to ensure that they have the greatest visitor impact and business impact on the community. When it comes to the value of sport tourism, the most recent numbers published by Sport Tourism Canada are from 2020, so prior to the pandemic. And annual spending in 2020 in the sport tourism sector was $7.4 billion. Of that, $135 million was spent within Prince Edward Island, which represents an increase by more than two or double from 2015. So you can see that the sport tourism sector is growing and has grown year over year over the past number of years. So it is an area that is an opportunity for communities of all sizes to generate impacts, whether they be economic, image, social, sport, or environmental, through the attraction and hosting of sport events. And when it comes to the preferred future that we've identified, we've already noted that Charlottetown is a sport tourism leader when it comes to destinations right across the country. The experience that Charlottetown has in both attracting and hosting events is second to none. In order to provide solutions to all of those rights holders, Charlottetown can and has been able to achieve success in all four seasons in being able to build out the visitor attraction, especially during the shoulder seasons when hotels and other hospitality businesses are not as busy. I can say that this work has aligned with the City of Charlottetown strategic plan and the Tourism PEI strategy, because they need to work hand in hand in order for there to be success within the sport tourism sector. One of the differentiators for Charlottetown is that single point of contact. That is a solution that makes life easier and allows rights holders to choose Charlottetown because of the simplicity, but also because of the experience that Charlottetown has in delivering exceptional events. When it comes to Charlottetown, one thing that we really kept coming back to in this project was the notion of legacy first. So not just looking at the short-term wins, but looking at how the community of Charlottetown and all residents of Charlottetown can benefit from the hosting of any individual event or the aggregation of multiple events over the course of a year or within a particular sport or a particular category. That proactivity is going to ensure that all events are contributing to the public good. This isn't just about one particular sport, one particular local organization, or one particular sector of business. This is about all residents and making life and the quality of life better for everybody who lives in Charlottetown and in PEI. It should be noted that the level of human and financial resources that Charlottetown has, while good, you are competing against much larger budgets and much larger teams from across the country. So that should be noted, that you can't just do things the way that others do them and expect the same results. You need to look at different and innovative ways in which to attract those sport events and deliver them for success. Because you are competing with larger cities, the one differentiator that Charlottetown has had over many years is the ability to meet face to face. That is a differentiator, and it allows Charlottetown to make a difference and to be able to make those connections in person, which lead to greater results. And when it comes to the success rate for every bid that Charlottetown submits, I would hazard to guess, and there is no data to support this because other cities probably won't give it to us, but I would put Charlottetown's success rate when it comes to bidding and winning up against any others in the country, because Charlottetown has those connections and knows when to bid and when that chance of success will happen. Now, we looked at the current state. So where is Charlottetown today? Because we don't want to assume that because strategies have been done over the past number of years that you are necessarily in the same place that you were when those pieces of work were done. So we looked at access. Coming out of the pandemic especially, there needs to be an emphasis on access to Charlottetown. That is critical to ensure that you can win those events and to ensure that those events are contributing not just during peak times of the year, but also shoulder seasons and off seasons. Because if sport tourism as a sector is able to contribute 52 weeks of the year, and there aren't other segments of the tourism industry that are able to contribute every single week of the year, you need to be able to get people to Charlottetown, and you need to make sure that when they land in Charlottetown, that they are happy. You don't want to put up barriers for them to get there or make it more challenging than it already is. Venues. When it comes to venues, your work as a municipality is never done. And you know that better than anybody because you're constantly looking at life cycle planning, you're looking at potential capital improvements, and all of that work, especially coming out of a major games like a Canada Winter Games, you certainly can't rest on your laurels because with the passage of time, that shortens the life cycle of each of your host venues. And it also we don't assume and can't assume that the rights holders' technical requirements are going to be the same in 3, 5, 10 years from now that they were 3, 5, or 10 years ago, because that is always evolving, and they are always looking for opportunities to enhance the delivery of their events, and venue improvements are part of that puzzle. When it comes to revenues, it certainly is about ticket sales. You want to make sure that those top line revenues are achievable within Charlottetown, and therefore being able to connect to all residents of the city, but also the larger catchment area is important to ensure event success. Cost controls, we want to make sure that any of your industry partners and providers, and you've got a great network within Charlottetown that you work with, that they're able to provide that cost certainty and that predictability to the rights holder, because that will give Charlottetown an advantage in not having to hand off that customer to a third party to do their own negotiation after the bid is won. When it comes down to the participant experience, authenticity, that is what people have come to know and expect from Charlottetown. And what you say is what they're going to get. And that is something that you need to live every day. And that is something, that trust and that authenticity is something that is developed through those face-to-face meetings that I mentioned earlier. And then when it comes to the ancillary experiences, so outside of the field of play, that's what people are going to remember. That is what is going to help you to generate incremental pre and post visitation, also is going to help to induce return visitation, because what happens outside of the field of play is often what is most memorable about people's event experiences. Now, we provided the sport tourism roadmap for everybody to see, and I won't go into this in great depth. Just wanted to provide it because it is a continuation from previous work that we've done and the strategy, the guidelines for growth that were done in 2017. However, it has been adapted from a single cycle to an infinity cycle to reflect the importance of both bidding and hosting, because it isn't just about winning the rights to host, it's also about delivering successful events. And I'll keep coming back to, in this project, what really seemed to be our North Star is that legacy first. We want to make sure that every event is driving legacy for the greater public good and for all residents of Charlottetown. Now, when it comes to what we heard, we did hear about the importance of sport tourism, that it is a key driver of business as well as community vibrancy, and that it does provide a powerful marketing platform for Charlottetown to tell its story to a much wider audience than you would otherwise be able to tell. Again, helping to induce some of that pre and post travel, but perhaps more importantly, some of that those return visits. It also, we heard loud and clear that Charlottetown is a sport tourism hub city, and that success doesn't happen from your desk. You can't just assume that because you have a good reputation and you've done good work in the past and you've delivered successful events, that they're necessarily going to come back or necessarily be successful. You cannot be complacent. You need to keep pushing. And you need to make sure that you're having those conversations directly with your customers. That doesn't happen from your desk. Continuation of what Charlottetown does well. Having that connected ecosystem of service providers and experience providers that helps to deliver on that Charlottetown brand promise. And also looking at new and innovative ways to host events that wouldn't be possible with Charlottetown going it alone. So looking at co-hosting models that you've got some recent experience, again, with Canada Winter Games and other events within Prince Edward Island, but also looking beyond PEI to the Maritimes, whether that be Moncton, Sydney, or other jurisdictions, for other innovative co-hosting models that can help Charlottetown to deliver new successes. Continuing to deliver on that event experience, and then that consistent support to the event from staff, from the concepts phase right through to the legacy phase. That is something that people have come to know and trust. The staff that are working with them, not just during the sale or the bid cycle, but also in that transition to hosting, and then right through the event planning and delivery, and then ultimately ensuring that legacy. When it comes to the customers, we want to make sure that that everybody has the same understanding. Your primary customer is the rights holder who is deciding on Charlottetown as compared to other host cities. That could be a national sport organization or multi-sport organization, could be a provincial organization, a private rights holder, or professional sport. So they are deciding Charlottetown versus host city X. We want to make sure that they have the information that they need and all of those answers to their questions so that they can select Charlottetown. The secondary customer are the potential travelers. That could be the event participants, spectators, athletes, officials, friends and family, anybody that can decide Charlottetown, but they're also making decisions about pre and post travel. What do they want to add on to the front end or back end of that event to ensure that they can round out that bucket list experience for them? And then the tertiary customer is really that sport tourism ecosystem in and around Charlottetown. So everybody that is enabling Charlottetown to bid for and host these events, but also able to deliver them successfully. So it extends beyond just this city corporation or council or this committee. It extends much broader across departments within the corporation, and then outside of the corporation to partners that you work with, again, from concept through to legacy. So now getting to the strategy. Again, this strategy is not just a continuation, but we did take a fresh look from the previous work that was done on the guidelines for growth 2017 to 2021, the recovery plan from 2021 through 2022, and then this work will cover the planning cycle of 2023 to 2026. So the vision for Charlottetown is not entirely new, but it was modified somewhat from the guidelines for growth work that was done in 2017. And this renewed vision is that Charlottetown will be a leading sport host destination in Canada, which Charlottetown is. But again, you can't be complacent. You can't assume that you will always retain that position within the sector. How will Charlottetown do that? Within these strategic pillars of growing business, growing Charlottetown, and growing the sport tourism sector, we've identified in the final report some of the actions and tactics that will be done, some over a short-term cycle, some over a longer-term cycle, and that will help Charlottetown to make decisions over the next 3-year period to ensure that you can not just continue what you've done, but also to look at new and innovative ways of doing things in the future. With that, I will stop sharing and open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much, Grant, for that. It's very informative and very knowledgeable. I will ask the room. Any questions for Grant, folks?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question about something. Thank you, Grant. That was a great presentation. Appreciate it. I'm one of the directors here at City Hall, and this is Wayne's department is one of my direct reports. And I know Wayne and I have had conversations often about resourcing this piece of work and the fact that we're up against it when it comes to the resources that we have to dedicate to this important work. And so I'm wondering if you can speak specifically to the kind of staffing complement you typically see when we're playing against the big boys, if you will, as far as rolling this kind of work out.
Well, through the chair, when it comes to sport tourism, I would say that it is generally under-resourced, both financially and in terms of human resources. I think Charlottetown is probably leading in that it has a solid complement of dedicated staff to this file. I think what I would say is typical in Canada is that sport tourism is done from the side of the desk. What I have been advocating for is to try to get it to the middle of the desk so that it is staff's primary focus. In the case of Charlottetown, where you're working within a municipal structure as compared to a destination organization, I think that also is a factor because in a destination organization, they are resourced, they have more resources, both financial and human resources, but they also have more sectors that they're looking at, whether it's meetings and conventions, travel trade, other segments that they're trying to drive business. I think in those organizations, sport tourism is almost has been taken for granted over the last 2 decades. And over the last 2 years, it has elevated in its profile and what it can do in terms of performing and delivering the results. I would say, look at sport tourism objectively, look at what it is that you're trying to achieve, and don't necessarily go for the cheapest or the easiest solution. Because ultimately, if it's not at the center of someone's desk, then that is going to impact performance, and then that could ultimately impact your standing or your success rate that you've enjoyed over the last number of years.
Great, thank you for that.
I'm sorry, Grant, I should have introduced, that was Sue Fraser, one of our directors, and Councillor John McAleer is here, and Councillor Richard Tweel, and Your Worship, Mayor Brown. I apologize for that, for not introducing it first. Councillor McAleer, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for your report. I just wondered, as you probably well know, the city's hosting the Canadian University Hockey Championships at our Eastlink Centre. And I just wonder, like on that structure itself, does your group have any kind of opinion on that facility? There's been a lot of upgrades done to it, but kind of going forward, just wondered, do you see that it needs any further enhancement, or do you have an opinion on that in terms of the?
Well, through you, Chair, to the councillor, this project didn't have in its scope a specific review of any individual facilities or venues. However, I will refer back to the 2017 work in which we had identified that the age of the facility and the amenities within the facility could be limiting factors to its success in attracting and hosting events in the future. That is not something that we looked at in greater detail this time around, but it is something that I would suggest that the city continue to look at with a critical eye towards what the technical requirements are for each of the sports that you're looking to attract, and then to identify any gaps between current state and future preferred state.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tweel, you're up next.
Thank you, Grant, for your presentation. It's very, very in-depth, very informative. One of the discussions that I've had with our manager, Wayne Long, over the years when we talk about sports tourism is when people come here to visit our city, regardless of what the demographics is, it's either passive or active recreation. And a lot of the older demographics, or not necessarily the older demographics, but all demographics for that matter, come here and would like to see enhancements and improvements when it comes to passive and active recreation. And I'll give you an example. Our active transportation pathways. People would want to come here, stay in one of our local hotels or other tourism facilities, and like to have the ability to be able to, particularly in our downtown, to be able to walk or run, jog, cycle in a defined area. And I was wondering, and maybe you answered that when you answered Sue's question, you didn't look at specific venues and specific facilities, but from a passive perspective, I think there's a real opportunity in our city, particularly in the downtown. You can look at Victoria Park, for example, so we can have these active transportation pathways that are open during the 4 seasons. And I think there's a real opportunity to make some big inroads when it comes to, investing in that type of infrastructure so that people, again, that, could be in your 40s, 50s, 60s that like to run, jog. I think Victoria Park as an example. I think we've got some great opportunities, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know I've discussed this with Wayne over, in recent years, and he's made it quite clear the impact effect of sports tourism is not just limited to we might think a big arena or a small arena, or the people want to come here in their holidays and wake up in the morning and go for a nice walk or a nice jog, and it's safe and it's secure and it's predictable and it's consistent, and they have that experience. So I just wonder if you could speak to that, please.
Yeah, well, through the chair to you, Councillor, when it comes to any type of infrastructure enhancements or development, my recommendation will always be that when you're looking at something that is active or passive recreation, it may also have the potential for some type of hosting opportunities in the future. So I would always suggest that whether you're doing recreation facility master planning, you're doing active transportation master planning, that you also add a layer of sport hosting onto that, so that you can look at it from that lens as well, because there may be an opportunity to align so that it is not just a single use or single purpose facility or area that you are developing, that there could be something that could translate into cross country or to mountain bike or to road cycling or any of those other opportunities. It isn't just bricks and mortar venues. There is also an opportunity for temporary venues that are one-time single use, that pop up and that are taken away. And that is a trend within sport tourism and sport hosting, as well as that trying to do things sustainably and not necessarily overbuild, but making sure that you don't limit yourself with the construction of any new infrastructure, so that it can, again, contribute to that greater good. Looking at legacy first, which we had talked about in the presentation, is something that I would recommend to the city of Charlottetown for any of your recreation development in the future.
Thank you. If you look at other cities, in terms of the question that I asked and the response that you gave me, whether cities our size or bigger cities, what city would you be able to point to that has accepted that challenge of meeting those trends as to what people are looking for in terms of passive and active recreation, and like to go to cities to have that experience, where they're able to take advantage of those venues and facilities, every day that they're here, and have that experience, and then they'll go back and recommend to their family and their friends, geez, we had a real nice time. It was not only fresh air, good clean air, but we were able to go out and get some exercise, and again, very passive or much more intense. If you were to look at cities that would be the benchmark, the model, the blueprint that we could aspire to, what city would you say we should look at?
Well, through the chair, and this is completely off the top of my head because this was not part of the study that we had done, but I would look at a city like Ottawa that has some of those active transportation routes throughout the downtown and getting to the downtown. And but that may be an unfair comparison because that is the national capital. There is an organization that does have a unique standing within the National Capital Region, and that is the National Capital Corporation. So that may not be a fair comparison, but I would say that generally that I would point to them as having done a really good job of trying to manage the active transportation. Unfortunately, this year they weren't able to combat the situation with global warming, and one of their active transportation routes was not accessible to residents because the canal didn't freeze.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Grant.
Councillor Twill. Good questions.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor Brown.
Grant, I just want to ask Wayne just a couple of statistics. Wayne, where do we rank in, I know you put this information out last year, number one under 50,000. Do you have some of those stats there, please?
Yeah. From a sport tourism perspective, Your Worship, Charlottetown is currently ranked number one in the country for populations 50,000 and under. And we're ranked number 6th overall in the country, regardless of population. So if you looked at the top 6, you would see Montreal, Vancouver, Quebec City, Toronto, Ottawa, Calgary, Charlottetown. So we're in the mix. There's also statistics that Sport Tourism Canada, through exit surveys and through economic impacts that are conducted through the STEAM model, produce defined results, and that is specific to events, but also to destinations. And when I say destinations, it's more provincially than it is from a destination like a city, but those numbers are broken down further. So it depends on exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. And Mr. Chair, you know, when we look at aspiring to other municipalities, I think we have a good record, just starting from the sports pillar, going to cultural, sustainability, and all the other pillars that we look at as a community. I think we want other municipalities to aspire to what we're doing, which I think is, we're doing a great job. Just those statistics gives you an indication. And when you look at active transportation pathways, we initiated the Mayor's Task Force on Active Transportation Pathways in 2019. Now we want to go to the next level, which will be to look at integrating our active transportation pathways with the capital region, Stratford to the east, Cornwall to the west. And I think then we could look at reaching out on how we can connect them to Island Trails, Inc., which is that spine, the former CN rail from East Point to West Point. So I think there's some good advantages of building on that. But Grant, when I look at page, I think it's your hosting readiness. Okay, so you look at the venues. And Councillor McAleer talked about our East Link facility that was built for the Canada Games in 1991. And as you know, we hosted the 2023 Jeux Canada Games, and using, okay, looking at that facility, that's a sustainable legacy facility that we used as part of these games. If you look at University of Prince Edward Island, the field house, the Chan Wang Canada field house, that was another facility that was built for the 1991 games. And if anyone happened to get out to Brookvale Ski Resort, the ski lift and all the improvements that were made to that facility or that venue were part of the 91 games. So not only did we host a great games, we showed that sustainability is very important in going forward in hosting games, whether it's the summer games or the winter games. But if I look at what Councillor McAleer was asking, as you know, back in 2017, I think it was about that time, Wayne, that we initiated or looked at a new facility. We had a team. There was a task force that the mayor at the time and council initiated or triggered, and that group came back with some recommendations. But when I looked at the numbers as a candidate in 2018, you know, if you're looking at $100 million, or look at Centre d'Avenir in Moncton, that's a $125 million facility. Like that's a lot of cost. And it's not just the capital cost. Then it's to maintain it thereafter. And you need big tenants or you need a big sponsor. So I like to work, Grant, I like to try to work with what we have and improve on the facilities that we have. Like the Montreal Forum, it lived for how many years? The Madison Square Gardens, where the Maple Leafs played in Toronto before the new Air Canada facility. You know, they were old facilities, but they did, you know, provide a great entertainment venue for locals or anyone that was coming in from outside of Toronto or Montreal. So venues is something that I think we need more discussion, but I look at revenue, and Grant, when the revenue comes in for hotels, motels, restaurants, Airbnbs, that tax doesn't go to us. Consumption tax is provincial, federal. When we look at tax from these venues, or when we host any sporting events, we're just looking at what we get in terms of property tax and enhancing those commercial properties. So is there any other, like for municipalities, where else can we look for revenue? Because as you said, as you know and I know, HST, GST, excise tax on liquor and cigarettes, that's all going to the provincial federal governments. Where can municipalities find a niche in gaining or earning revenue from hosting small, medium-sized, or large events?
Well, for most municipalities across Canada, they're generating revenue through what's either called a destination marketing fee, a municipal accommodation tax, or by some other name, a hotel levy. And that is generating revenue that is helping that municipality to finance and fund the attraction of new activity or the promotion of the destination. In some jurisdictions, they have some additional fees on tickets, but generally those are used as facility improvement fees that contribute to the offsetting of or the maintenance of any of those facilities. But those are generally larger jurisdictions that are able to do that. So for most communities across Canada, they are looking at that hotel-driven revenue generation in order to finance their marketing, promotion, but also to ensure that the financial needs of event delivery are met. Because as this sector gets more competitive, and it is more competitive than it was in 2017, especially based on the role that sport tourism played in the recovery from the pandemic, that more municipalities are getting more active and more aggressive in this space. So in addition to those user-generated fees that they're able to induce through hotel room nights, they're also looking at operational allocations within their municipal budgets, within their destination organization budgets, whatever the case may be, to ensure that they can not just remain competitive and hold their current standing, but look at trying to attract incremental business in the future.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just follow up. So if I go to page 14 of your document, you talk about the customer profile. I think that's what it's referred to as. Just one second. So if you look at that, Grant, we have a lot of partners. We have Discover Charlottetown. We have the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation. They oversee the Charlottetown Event Grounds. DCI, Downtown Charlottetown Inc., which is our business improvement area. We have the Greater Charlottetown Chamber of Commerce. We have Tourism PEI. We have Meetings and Conventions PEI. We have Tourism Association of Prince Edward Island, or Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island. A lot of partners around the table. And I know that Wayne and the team down there in economic development, tourism, festival events do a great job trying to coordinate all these bodies, but it does pose challenges in working together. But I think we've been successful in doing promoting and getting new events here. Any suggestions on how if you again doing an analysis of other municipalities, is there any way to streamline some of these operations so that we can reach out as coordinated rather than always trying to get together and put our heads together to attract those big events or small events or medium events? Any suggestions?
Well, through the chair, I would say that in many jurisdictions, the reality is that these organizations existed before there was a concerted effort to attract sport tourism. So it becomes one of coordination, one of administration, and to ensuring that there's communication and collaboration so that all of the stakeholders within the ecosystem that you identified and that we've identified in the report are aware of the City of Charlottetown's strategy and are all aligned in their efforts as well. So looking at roles and responsibilities, ensuring there's not duplication, all of that takes time. And to my earlier response on resourcing, that's why I would err on the side of having enough resources to ensure that collaboration can happen, because I would point to Charlottetown being a leader in how it manages all of these interests and organizations. And I would say that other cities, and in some cases larger cities in Canada, are struggling because they don't have that alignment of purpose and they don't have that shared vision on what they want sport events to deliver for their community. So I think Charlottetown is, and I have referenced it as being a leader to other jurisdictions that when they ask me the similar question, who would you point to as being a leader in this space? My go-to response is Charlottetown.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just one final point. I know that.
Other questions?
Yeah, just quickly. So, Grant, we do have a tourism accommodation levy that is applied to hotels, motels, and eventually I think will be applied to Airbnbs, short-term rentals. But for hotels, motels, it's 4+ rooms. Anything below that, you can't apply it. And that TAL, Wayne, goes into a fund that provides operational costs for Discover Charlottetown. It also extends funding over to meetings, Prince Edward Island, meetings and conventions. I don't know if that's the same in other jurisdictions, Grant, but I'd like to get a comparison to see how that works in Halifax, Moncton, and other areas. Again, it's all about sharing the wealth, because in the end, when we do promotions for the city as a sports venue or a cultural venue site or a environmental and sustainability venue to come and experience our warmth and hospitality, I think revenue will generate more possibilities.
Wayne, would you like to? Oh, sorry, Grant, did you have something to say, or Wayne?
I was just going to say quickly through you, Chair, is that in most cases, I would say, and I am biased, but sport is generally underserved by those hotel-generated taxes across Canada. And I referenced it earlier, that sport tourism has been taken for granted because it's always happened in communities right across Canada. Well, it's not always going to be there. And I think the pandemic proved that. So I think that when it comes to the broader tourism industry and all of the various sectors within it, whether it be meetings and conventions, for the marketing and promotion of destinations, and then sport tourism, I think sport tourism not just deserves a seat at that table, but also deserves a fair share of revenue from those funds.
Wayne, would you like to wrap it up?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Here too.
Just a couple of quick things as we wrap this up. I want to thank Grant for his presentation. A couple of closing remarks that I would make is that in many other jurisdictions, the tourism accommodation levy goes directly to the DMO, so it never comes back to the municipality. And I think Grant can confirm that. And sport tourism as a whole, a lot of people I don't know if everyone realizes this, but the city of Charlottetown is driving the attraction of all these events. They're coming to Capital City. The U Sportsmen's Hockey Championship that's in the city right now, the city of Charlottetown led the bid to attract that event to the city and help them with their business planning and initiative. Although they're executing, we played an integral role in ensuring that that was capitalized for the city. And then finally, the mayor had a number of questions for Grant around destinations and cities and how you can get more revenue. I can't directly comment on that, but I do know many municipalities are using sport tourism to elevate their brand, to bring more visitation to their city, to give people a reason to move to the city, to create quality life and social interaction, to support the business taxpayers who are here paying taxes, to put business bums and seats and heads and beds in hotels, et cetera. So it's a good discussion to be having, but it's a very broad discussion. And I always say, if you want to see the value of sport tourism, let's stop all the sporting events that are currently coming to town, and you'll quickly see the impact that it has on the destination.
Thank you, Wayne. Ari, Councilor Trio, if you can sort of make it quick, if you don't mind.
No, thank you. I won't be long. Just in response to the mayor talking about, active transportation pathways, it's great to have that connectivity with Cornwall, Stratford. I support that, but at the same time, I think there's some great opportunities in Charlottetown, particularly in the older part of the city, that we have yet to take advantage of. I use Victoria Park as an example, and other routes that can be established, because when people come here, they want to wake up in the morning and they want to have that opportunity. Some of the other cities that were mentioned, whether it be Ottawa, Portland, Oregon, a lot of these places have these facilities in place, and it's a great experience. So I just wanted to reinforce that we still have, and Grant, you said it yourself in your presentation earlier, we're doing some great things here in Charlottetown, but you said, and I quote, we can't rest in our laurels.
Thank you, Councilor Trio. Grant, I would really like to thank you for your presentation, and we had some good questions, and it's very in-depth, and we're going to use this as a feeding force, I guess, to go forward, and I know you're only a phone call away most days if we need some questions answered. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of everybody. And we may as well wrap it up with Grant right now. Is that okay, folks?
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you
very
again,
much.
Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, folks.
Wayne, you mentioned about DMO, Destination Marketing Organization. That's
Yeah.
So Halifax has a destination marketing organization, Moncton, Truro.
So, Your Worship, in Charlottetown, we're structured uniquely. Many destinations, this portfolio is driven out of a destination marketing organization, which we look into bring leisure visitation, meetings and conventions, sporting events, wedding destinations, LGBTQ attractions. They have various pillars. If you go to Halifax, they have one. Moncton has one. Cape Breton has one. In Charlottetown, PEI, we're kind of splintered. We have the City of Charlottetown leads sport tourism. Discover Charlottetown is the marketing arm, and meetings and conventions, PEI leads meetings and conventions.
And the revenue is split a third, a third, a third. And our third goes to SURF. which
Correct.
is-
That's correct. It's so the tourism accommodation levy is split in thirds. The third that comes to SURF helps the City of Charlottetown in terms of financial benefit to events. That currently accounts for over about $500,000, so it's saving taxpayers at least $500,000 to fund into events.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, let's do department highlights, Wayne, if you don't mind.
Again, Mr. Chair, this report is in your package. I'm not going to go through item by item in this report. It's just an update. The committee likes to receive this. I'm just going to highlight a couple of quick items. Staff have been working to tidy up the tax incentive program, and we'll be coming back at a future meeting with some recommendations with respect to that program. We've been working with Downtown Charlottetown Inc. in terms of their state of the downtown. This is something that happened in the past prior to the pandemic, and they're trying to ramp that back up again, which will be valuable to us. Also, if you haven't had an opportunity yet, there is a immigrant and refugee services display that's currently at the Confederation Court Mall. Staff have been working with respect to that, so have a look if you have an opportunity. We have 3 events that we just recently secured. One is the 2023 Canadian Capital Cities Organization Annual Conference, the 2024 editions of the Communities in Bloom National Symposium and Awards, as well as Contact East. And again, these bids were led directly by the municipality. Obviously, we all know that the Canada Games went very, very well. Some people have been asking me, including members of this committee, the impact of the Games. There was an economic impact assessment done, of which the host society will unveil at some time in the future when they have the results. It's no hidden secret that the Games will generate over $100 million to the province of Prince Edward Island, with Charlottetown garnering a good, strong share of that. And of course, with the U Sports Men's Hockey Championship in the city this week. Next week, we're hosting the Canadian Curling Firefighters Championship as well. You can see the impacts of sport tourism in the shoulder season. And beyond that, Mr. Chair, I'll leave the remainder of the report for the committee to read unless there's any questions. That concludes this portion.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Yeah, there's some good reading and information in that for us. Number C, an MOU we're putting out. Is that going to be addressed here?
Yes, so Mr. Chair, we staff have bid on the hosting of the Communities in Bloom Symposium and Awards. We recently secured the hosting rights to this event for 2024. The event brings about 300 people with that. Charlottetown hosted the 10th edition, the 20th edition, and coincidentally, we will now host the 30th edition. No other municipality in the country can say that. The event will be in October 17th to 19th. It'll be hosted at the Delta Prince Edward in the PEI Convention Center. We're now required to enter into an MOU, which is attached here with Communities in Bloom. There's also financial commitments that are binded to this agreement. They form a part of our current budget that is before council. So we're looking to keep this moving. This would go forward to council in April and only after the budget is brought down. So we're looking for the committee's support to take this as a resolution to council.
Moved by Councillor Trio, seconded by Councillor McAleer. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, folks. That was very informative. Grant's a great guy. I met him a few times, Wayne, through you in our business ventures, and he's very knowledgeable of the whole atmosphere anyway. Okay, any new business?
Mr. Mayor,
Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that I was very appreciative that the grant was brought in to go over this report.
You just missed my comment then.
No, I heard it, and I just want to thank Wayne and yourself to allow this to go ahead, because
Yep.
it's a good going forward proposal.
Okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mayor Brown, second by Councillor McAleer. Thank you very much, folks.